In the United States, we have a variety of phrases or terms that we use for money. These include the buck, C-note, double sawbuck, and there are some others. The U.S. is not the only place where money is often referred to other than the official denomination. In one of my favorite places in the world, the United Kingdom, they have the quid. What is a quid, and how did that word come to be? We'll investigate in this episode of History of Everyday Sayings. Hello, Steve Carter here, your host for History of Everyday Sayings. I thank you for joining me. Who is this show for? If you are a logophile, a philomath, or you're someone who enjoys history tidbits and nuggets that you can share with family and friends, this is your show. You'll find previous episodes of this show and other shows on my website at stressreliefradio.com, stressreliefradio.com. What is a quid? According to Investopedia.com, a quid, Q-U-I-D, quid is a slang expression for the British pound sterling or the British pound. And, of course, the British pound sterling is the currency of the United Kingdom. A quid equals 100 pence, and the nickname may stem from the Latin phrase quid pro quo, which translates as something for something. As best historians can tell, the use of the word quid began in the late 17th century, meaning the 1600s. While you might think that the pound sterling has sterling in it, but alas, the modern-day pound sterling is no longer comprised of silver. According to BBC.com, the British pound sterling has a strong claim to be the oldest living currency in the world. The pound has accompanied Britons for virtually their entire history. Again, according to the BBC article, A Short History of the Pound traces its origins back to continental Europe. Its name derives from the Latin word libra, which is, of course, weight or balance, and that relates to libra poundo, meaning a pound weight. While the word libra has long since been discarded, it makes its presence felt in both the symbol for the pound, which is an ornate L, and the abbreviation for the unit of mass, pound or lb. The relation to mass was not coincidental because its value originally equated to the price of a pound of silver. Up until the 1970s, in a nod to the ancient Roman system of libra, solidos, and denarius, a pound was divided into 20 shillings and 240 pennies. An equivalent system of 1 livre to 20 sous, S-O-U-S, and 240 denarius, D-E-N-I-E-R-S, had already been adopted by the Frankish kingdom under Charlemagne. The Anglo-Saxon king Offa, O-F-F-A, is credited with introducing the system of money to central and southern England in the latter half of the 8th century, overseeing the minting of the earliest English silver pennies, emblazoned with, well, what else? His name. In practice, these coins varied in weight, and 240 of these coins actually seldom added up to 1 pound. Originally, there were no denominated coins. Pounds and shillings were merely useful units of account. The first pound coin did not appear until 1489, and that was under Henry VII. and it was called a sovereign. The shilling was first minted in 1504. In 1694, banknotes began to circulate in England, and that was soon after the establishment of the Bank of England. Interestingly, the original notes, well, they were initially handwritten. Gold coins emerged in 1560, and by 1672, some of those coins were copper. And the pound maintained its complex system of shillings and pence until the United Kingdom adopted its present monetary structure, and that was in 1971. How was the British pound affected by the years and years of inflation over the entire history of England and then later the United Kingdom? In 980, 1 pound could buy you 15 head of cattle. But by the 15th century to the year 2000, according to estimates, the purchasing power had fallen 400-fold. 400-fold. In 1999, the House of Commons Library concluded that between 1750 and 1998, prices had risen by about 118 times. And this meant that a penny in 1750 had more purchasing power than a pound in 1998. They did note, however, that this was a very rough approximation, but actually probably close enough, as we would say, for government work. Most of the inflation has taken place after 1945. As of today, the pound sterling is the official currency of the United Kingdom, of Jersey, Guernsey, the Isle of Man, Gibraltar, South Georgia, and the Sandwich Islands, and a couple of other locations. When the United Kingdom entered the EU, European Union, they could have opted to use the euro, but perhaps even then they knew that at some point they would have Brexit and leave the EU. For whatever reason, they declined to use the euro, and they maintained the pound British sterling as their official currency. While the exchange rate between the British pound and other currencies will vary on a day-to-day basis, earlier this year, the British pound was worth $1.20 US, 1.61 Canadian, and 1.13 to the euro. Historically, the pound has been worth considerably more in relation to the United States dollar. Historically, we would need about $1.50 or $2 to purchase 1 pound sterling. So let's go back to the quid. A quid is equal to 1 pound. Interestingly, there is no plural form for the word quid. You can have 1 quid, 5, 20 quid. You could have 1,000,000 quid. You'll also hear the term smackers in the UK. You'll occasionally hear that term in the US as well, but it's pretty rare. But 1 smacker is equal to 1 pound. And pennies are now pence. As an example, an item could be 5 pounds and 50 pence. But you would typically hear 5 pounds 50. 5-pound notes and 10-pound notes are frequently called a fiver or tenner. In the U.S., we still have dollar bills, but that is no longer the case in the U.K. The 8 coins currently in circulation: 1 penny, 2 pence, 5 pence, 10 pence, 20 pence, 50 pence, 1 pound, and 2 pounds. Those all being in coins. If you would like to take a deeper dive into the history of the British currency and the slang term quid, I will have all of the references I use for this episode linked in the show notes, also known as the show description. If you enjoy learning about the history of everyday sayings, we now have a total of 40 episodes for your listening pleasure. You can find all of those episodes and other podcasts by visiting my website, stressreliefradio.com. If you would like to reach me to comment on this episode or for any reason, I would love to hear from you. Email me at cartermethod@gmail.com. Until our next visit together, your host here, Steve Carter, from the History of Everyday Sayings podcast, wishing you and your loved ones blessings in abundance.